Hello everyone, I'm Tyson. Welcome back to Tyson Goes Psycho. You may be wondering why I'm wearing a jiu-jitsu kimono. I'll tell you in a minute. I just also like the way it looks. It makes me look a lot tougher than I really am. Module 1, Week 1, the history of psychology. What did we learn? We learnt that psychology doesn't have a simple history. It didn't just start one day. Like a lot of the sciences, it started with people poking around in a dark room trying to figure stuff out with just their senses. Psychology was the same. Psychology started out with a guy called Wilhelm Wundt deciding to open a lab, and he trained people to sit and, I kid you not, talk about their feelings. And they were trying to map the structure of what our internal psyche actually looks like. What's fear? What does it look like? How does it work? It may be no surprise that psychology was considered the laughing stock of the sciences. It's not a real science because they were called introspectors. They would introspect and think about themselves and write about it. And of course, two introspectors can have a completely different subjective experience of fear or anger. And it can't be falsified, and that's the key that makes psychoscience. Psychology and sociology are often looked down on by the hard scientists, and I just think, boys and their toys. It's a science if you're investigating a phenomenon with the scientific method. You don't have to have test tubes, and the other reason I'm wearing this is because it kind of looks like a lab coat. It makes me look like a real scientist, and when you think of a scientist, you think the dude with glasses and test tubes and the nerdy stuff, but it's not what science is at all, and it's never been that. It's just a particular stereotype. So what is science? Science is simply observing things happening in the world, trying to figure out how they tick, and making predictions that can be false. So as we knock off various explanations that are false, we start to meander towards the truth. Science never claims to know the truth. We're just groping around in the dark of the human experience. But the key is science isn't just guessing. It's not making up myths or ideas about, say, parenting. There's so much information. Should you smack your kids? Some people say it's child abuse. Some people say it's abuse not to smack your kids. You're creating the next generation of criminals. In psychology this week, we looked at the literature on it. I've got some of it here for you. Lots of yummy reading. It's all got yummy numbers. And some people call that physics envy, trying to measure everything with maths. There you go, some numbers. What on earth has that got to do? So in psychology, we measure things like the level of warmth, the level of discipline a parent shows a child, and then how they act, what their emotional problems are when they're a teenager. And the numbers don't lie, folks. It's in smacking your kids or aggressive, forceful discipline, shaming, psychological manipulation are really bad for them. Okay, it doesn't teach them anything. It teaches them how to hide or internalize their problems, which then boils away and comes out as aggression, probably oversimplistic. But interestingly, I find out something new. The only thing worse than over smacking a child is not disciplining them at all. That's called permissive parenting, whereas authoritarian parenting is absolute control of the child, often even controlling their psyche. Permissive parenting is having no control at all, letting them do just whatever they like. And that is just as bad, if not more damaging. It creates similar levels of aggression and anxiety because they've got just like a child who's been controlled, a child who's been uncontrolled has never been taught how to manage themselves. Whereas authoritative parenting, you confront the child's misbehaviour, you don't let them get away with it, but you teach them how to behave in the appropriate way through various means. So authoritative parenting isn't soft. It's not a dichotomy between spanking and letting them do what they like. Balanced parenting is what creates children who know how to manage themselves. The things you learn with a bit of psych study. Why am I wearing a jiu-jitsu gi? So jiu-jitsu is something I tried. I really enjoy it. I'm not very good at it. I get hurt every week. Haven't done it for a while. It's basically a form of wrestling where you try to lock down your opponent in such a way that he can't move. And science to me is a lot like that. You're wrestling with these ideas. We don't know the answer. That's why we do the science. It's not just demonstrating things we already know. So it's a wrestle. You never know. Are you going to win? Are you going to lose? Are you going to get choked out? I don't know. That's why I'm doing the science. And if I can pin down a concept with hard evidence and reasoned logic and in a way that others can wrestle against me, I might have a theory to work with. And the wrestling against is the key. It's no point doing a demonstration in your gi on your own. Hey, look how good my moves are. It's irrelevant. Unless you submit to somebody else fighting you, fighting back, trying to prevent the chokes, it's worthless. And just with science, unless you submit it to experiments that are designed to prove you wrong, your ideas aren't really worth much. And the role of science in our lives has increased, obviously, in the Western world. There's an anti-science movement sort of floating around at the moment, which is a bit scary. There's the anti-intellectualism in America. In South Africa, there's an actual anti-science movement, let science fall. Why is this? I don't think science evil. I just think perhaps it hasn't been communicated very well. And we've got this perception of these gods in white coats that tell us how to live our lives. It's completely false. It's not the case at all. So that was Module 1. Well, not really. That was me rambling about parenting. But Module 1, we learned about the history of psychology, what it is and what it isn't. And the upshot is it's a science, folks. So physics envy, you can have physics envy if you want, but if you're investigating phenomenon in a scientific manner, it's a science. Thanks, y'all. Goodbye.